2017 marks 200 years of HarperCollins publishing, and that's an extraordinary thing. In Australia, HarperCollins has been publishing here since 1888. 1889, we published The Man from Snowy River, which became an instant bestseller. That's an extraordinary legacy. That says something about the power of Australian stories and the need for Australian stories.
I think the most important book I've sold was the Henry Reynolds, The Other Side of the Frontier, which looked at white settlement in Australia.
My most important book was the book that's started everything for me at the moment, which is The Death of Holden, a book about the end of the car industry and a place where I grew up near Elizabeth in South Australia.
One of the most important books that we have supported recently is The Bone Sparrow by local author Zana Frayon. It is about a young boy born on an offshore detention centre, and it is for 9 to 13-year-old readers.
Well, I'd have to say Dark Emu, I suppose, has started a conversation we've never had about Aboriginal achievement on the continent and how Aboriginal people had an agriculture which was suited to the environment and suited to our plants.
Oh, in terms of an important book that I've sold in my time as a bookseller, I immediately thought of Follow the Rabbit-Proof Fence. I think it is a heart-wrenching story of how strong the bond is between mother and child, and I just think it is a really important story for all Australians.
I suppose I might have to say that the most important book I've published was Spycatcher. It is a book that challenged orthodoxy, it challenged governments, it challenged the relationship between the British and Australian government, and it sold 10 million copies.
The most important cookbook is the very first one that was published here in Australia in 1864 in Hobart. It was by Mr. Edward Abbott, who went by the name an Australian Aristologist. It's important because it was published at a time when Australia was going through its first gold rush, its first wave of wealth, and its first attempt at becoming a significant nation.
So the most important book I think that I've had a part in selling is probably Stephanie Alexander's The Cook's Companion. It's just been an absolute fixture of my life and learning how to cook, but also being able to recommend it to people and to think about Australian food in a way that it hadn't really been thought about before.
Since I've been asked to choose which of my children are my favourites in terms of books, I'll probably choose Life or Death, which was the standalone novel that won me the Gold Dagger.
An outstanding Australian book of which I'm immensely proud to be associated with is Peter Fitzsimons' Kokoda.
I'm about to start my 8th title, but I think it was my 4th. The Forgotten Islands didn't sell very well, but to me it's the most important one I've written because it's pretty autobiographical. In fact, according to a few of my relations, a bit too bloody autobiographical. They weren't happy with a few of the things I said about my dear departed parents. But
Kate Grenville's The Secret River. And The Secret River is the first literary masterpiece, I think, which really tackles what the meaning of settlement and dispossession means for us as Australians.
The Australian book that I published that I'm most proud of is a book called Storyland by Catherine McKinnon. There is a character who says of Australia, the land is a book waiting to be read, because it's all about this land, it's about our country, it's about our stories, and it's about publishing in the end. It's about telling stories.